Chris, thank you. You're watching ESPN's Champ Week presented by Principal. Welcome to Dunk City, Fort Myers, Florida. It's the championship game in the A-Sun from Alico Arena. The top two teams in the conference, the #1 seed and the host, Florida Gulf Coast University, the Eagles, against the #2 seed, the Lipscomb Bisons. Just moments ago, both coaches firing up the troops.
Okay, we've talked about two things this whole last 10 days, right? Two things. One, understand the moment and enjoy it, right? Stakes are different. It's unmistakable. You ought to feel it, and it's an awesome thing, okay? Love it. That's why you're here. That's what you signed up for. This is exactly where we wanted to be. All right, so take all that in and enjoy it like you're supposed to, all right? The second part is just be you, right? Just do what got you here.
We've worked on this deal since when, guys? August. We've worked every single day, work like you're broke, every day since August to get this situation. You got a home court, you guys have worked your ass, so let's go out there and have some fun.
And good afternoon and formal introductions. Anish Shroff alongside Corey Alexander. Both of these teams have the star power to win today and get to the NCAA tournament.
And we have 80% of the first team A-Sun represented in this game. Each of the respective teams has two players, two members of that team, but Florida Gulf Coast has the A-Sun Player of the Year and Brandon Goodwin. And when you look at his contribution, one of 8 players nationally to lead their team in points, rebounds, and assists. Zach Johnson leads the conference in steals, and then Garrison Matthews for Lipscomb leads the conference in scoring. Rob Marbury, probably the best interior player in the conference. So you have just a bit of everything represented, and the two best teams in the A-Sun will fight it out here at Florida Gulf Coast to see who represents the A-Sun in the big dance.
Lipscomb has never played in the NCAA tournament, a chance to make program history today. Florida Gulf Coast seeking its 3rd consecutive trip to the NCAA tournament. We're 5 years removed now from when Dunk City became America's Cinderella.
And it's a different style of play, honestly, for Coach Dooley than the Dunk City of even last year, where they were more of an interior team. The guards actually dominate Florida Gulf Coast now, while it's the interior play of Rob Marbury who gets the job done for Lipscomb.
It's the 3rd meeting of the season between these two. The road team has won each time, and this game being played at Alico Arena in Fort Myers, the home court of the 1 seed, Florida Gulf Coast. Lipscomb will control the opening tip. It's Kenny Cooper, the A-Sun leader in steals per game. Here is Garrison Matthews, leading scorer in the conference, 24 in purple, and a turnover on the very first possession. The last time these two teams played, Lipscomb won, but committed 24 turnovers.
And that's one of the things that Casey Alexander, the head coach of Lipscomb, does not want to see, especially to start the game off. But he knows that his team is going to be a little anxious at the beginning of this game. This is a new environment for them that they haven't been in before.
As we see Brandon Goodwin, the A-Sun Player of the Year. Michael Buckland, another turnover. Zach Johnson over to Christian Terrell, blocked at the rim by Pepper. Here comes Matthews in transition. Matthews to the basket, gets the tough runner.
And when you score as many points as does Matthews, you would think that this guy is a big-time three-point shooter. Not that he can't make threes, but he plays downhill, especially when he gets the ball in his hands in transition. He's a handful to try to keep away from the rim.
He's the A-Sun's leading scorer, and head coach Casey Alexander said they only run about 2 or 3 plays for Matthews the entire game. Matthews from the outside, his 11th three of this conference tournament.
And you can tell that Matthews is locked in and ready and waiting to be able to have an opportunity to play in this A-Sun championship game.
Zach Johnson knocks it down from the outside. He's now 10 of 15 from 3 in the conference tourney.
And Matthews trying to get the ball in the hands of Marbury. We've heard from all the other stars that we talked about in the beginning of this game. Now it's time for Rob Marbury to have his imprint on it, but Matthews off to a great start, as well as Zach Johnson and Brandon Goodman.
It'll be Lipscomb ball. Pepper to inbound. Matthews using the fake. Sets and hits. 8 points for Garrison Matthews. That's the Bison scoring.
And Casey Alexander told us that he felt like his team would be anxious. They may have a few mistakes early, but he could not be happier with the way Garrison Matthews has started off this game. Coach Alexander loves to see his team share the basketball, and Matthews, off a beautiful pump fake, gathers himself once again and knocks down his second 3 early in this championship game.
He's made 12 of 19 threes in this tournament. Johnson doesn't get the bounce. Offensive rebound. Michael Gilmore, the nephew of the Hall of Famer Artis Gilmore.
And that may be where the advantage is for Florida Gulf Coast on the glass. They take pride in their rebounding, and that's an area they want to try to exploit with Lipscomb, but Lipscomb a very good rebounding team as well.
Cooper fouled on the drive.
Michael Gilmore, the transfer from VCU, off of the Zach Johnson miss. No one putting a body on him, and Gilmore recognizing he has an opportunity under the rim, using the rim as a shield, picks up 2 second chance points for the Eagles.
A free throw by Cooper, the first basket for Lipscomb by somebody other than Garrison Matthews. Substitutions, Gilmore to the bench. And Rayshawn Scott, the sophomore from Compton, checks in. Lipscomb enters this game on a 7-game win streak. They have won 11 of 12 overall. It's the highest scoring team in the ASUN. Less than a point more than Florida Gulf Coast.
I was about to say they're pretty close when it comes to scoring, but actually Florida Gulf Coast gives up 6 less points per game defensively than does Lipscomb, and that's been the difference in these two teams this season, even though they played tightly contested contests.
Scott going to work against Pepper. And we get a foul down low on Eli Pepper, his first. Casey Alexander, the head coach at Lipscomb in his 4th season. He was a longtime assistant for Rick Byrd at Belmont, spent some time as the head coach at Stetson as well. And he has led Lipscomb to back-to-back 20-win seasons. That's a first in Bison's program history. Here's Goodwin, Conference Player of the Year, over to Johnson. Johnson falling away from the baseline, rebounded by Matthews. Over to Pepper, ahead of the break, and the rebound to Scott. Goodwin had it knocked loose by Matthews, and it's taken away by Michael Buckland, the sophomore from High Point, North Carolina. And speaking of High Point, Pepper playing above the rim.
And Lipscomb is a team that has 3 to 4 guys that can actually push it in transition. So when they get the hands on the basketball, they're not looking to slow the tempo. They'll make their work into half court, but you see transition is an opportunity where they look to get easy buckets. A beautiful find from Cooper to Pepper over the top. And Pepper running the floor, outrunning the Eagles. Picks up a highlight to put in his reel.
Lipscomb plays at one of the fastest tempos in all of college basketball. The philosophy is the first good shot is the one you take.
But the thing about them, which is different, they're not a big-time ball screen team, as we see. They get the ball inside to Rob Marbury, which is the one player they want to make sure they get the ball into his hands. They're more of an inside-out team, but although they play 4 out, 1 in, they want to throw the ball inside and allow their offense to revolve around Marbury and making plays for offensive player in the post.
This is Dinero Mercurius, a three-point shooter. Aaron Korn guarding Johnson. Johnson from the outside. Doesn't go. Rebounded by Marbury.
And this is where Lipscomb can be deliberate in the half court. They won't rush just to get a shot up. They look to get the best shot for the team with every opportunity.
And we get a foul on Christian Carlisle. Lipscomb has had big leads on Florida Gulf Coast twice this season. Out to an early 7-point advantage.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Principal, Investments, Retirement, Insurance, and Land Rover, above and beyond.
Today, the third meeting between Lipscomb and Florida Gulf Coast on January 18th in Nashville. Florida Gulf Coast rallied from 18 down with 13 minutes to go. A couple of big runs. Brandon Goodwin, the league player of the year, scored 22, and the Eagles came away with an 88-83 win. Then last month, right here in Fort Myers, Lipscomb built up a 17-point lead. Florida Gulf Coast was able to close to within one. The Eagles had a chance to tie it on their last possession. Christian Terrell's three no good, and Lipscomb getting the win. And now the rubber match with a trip to the NCAA tournament on the line. I'm talking to Casey Alexander yesterday, Corey. He said there is a psychological benefit to having played in this building and having won in this building. Lipscomb has won its last two games here.
Well, and he feels as though his team has confidence as well, because even in the game that they lost on their home court, they pretty much outplayed Florida Gulf Coast for 30 to 35 minutes of that game. So he feels as though his team has more than enough confidence to be able to come in here and win. And when you have a guy shooting the ball like Garrison Matthews to get it started, you know he's playing with tremendous confidence.
Matthews off to a hot start. He had 29 in the quarterfinals of this tournament, 23 in the semis. Lipscomb pushing again. Cooper all the way, 4-2. Three times now this season, Florida Gulf Coast down double digits to Lipscomb. Entry pass, Ricky Doyle, the transfer from Michigan. Mercurius, the long three is not there. Here is Matthews. Matthews pulls up. That would have been his fourth three.
Why not? Heat check. Matthews has shot the ball so well, you have to take that shot.
How about Zach Johnson at the other end? 19-9.
And that's Zach Johnson's game. He's developed that jump shot where he's gotten so much better over his career here at Florida Gulf Coast. But when he first got here, he was a guy that loved to get the ball to the rim. As we see Lipscomb continue to move the ball extremely well. They're doing a lot of this without having to take a lot of dribbles. They're dribbling in transition, but it's passes in half court, allowing them to set up good shots.
And they've made Florida Gulf Coast work in the half court. Not many transition opportunities. Doyle that time. It doesn't go. Cooper, the lob. Marbury down low. Kicks it back out. Matt Rose lines up a three. He's been an X-factor off the bench for Lipscomb. 5 for Rose, and Lipscomb off to a roaring start, up 24-9. The Bisons looking for their first NCAA tournament berth.
Do you believe in second chances?
Walker, Cardi, and Campbell!
Well, here is the new beginning.
Knocked out the shot clock. Are you serious?
Champ Week, presented by Principal on ESPN.
Championship week by the numbers. 354 total games can be seen on the ESPN networks. 39 tickets will be punched. We saw madness earlier today. Radford on a buzzer beater to win the Big South, knocking off Liberty.
Congratulations to my man Mike Jones, his first trip as a head coach to the NCAA tournament. The Raptors, as Brandon Goodwin knocks down the three, which may be the MO for this game, because right now everyone has gotten off to a hot shooting start.
George Brammeyer from Brandon, Florida, just 2.5 hours north of here with a basket.
Manish, one of the things that Florida Gulf Coast has had a problem getting back and building their defense in transition, even off of a made shot. Lipscomb is still able to get into the paint and find players giving them easy baskets, but when they get rebounds, they're pushing in transition and looking for the first great shot, and they continue to get them off of beautiful finds by Kenny Cooper.
Joe Dooley told me yesterday the #1 key for Florida Gulf Coast, transition defense. It's been non-existent so far.
It really has, but give Lipscomb credit for continuing to push the envelope. He missed shots, made shots. Zach Johnson knocks down the three, but just like that, Lipscomb's coming right back at you and looking for an early opportunity before Florida Gulf Coast can get their defense set. Joe Dooley now going to the zone defense. Man-to-man has not worked for his team thus far.
In the first meeting, Florida Gulf Coast went to a zone as Pepper misses, and it was the change in defense that allowed the Eagles to come back from 18 and win. And Travius Simmons in the post, tied up by Brammeyer, and still forces it up and in.
And you can see the zone has somewhat slowed the pace of Lipscomb, but also what helps is when Florida Gulf Coast is able to score on their offensive end of the floor, and now Lipscomb doesn't have live ball opportunities to be able to get out in transition.
Shot clock down to 6. Cooper kicks it out. Korn hits from the outside. Lipscomb 5 of 7 from beyond the arc.
And that has been the staple of their program over the past few years. But Coach Alexander made it clear this year's team has not shot the ball extremely well. They're playing without what would have been their starting point guard. And they play more of an inside-out game with Marbury coming up and being their big scorer this year. But three-pointers have been the story for Lipscomb here today. And when we come back, we'll tell you about busting a move here in Dunk City.
Yeah, think I got wings the way I stay fly. We in the building, it's game time. Get out my way, I'm driving baseline. Come on, see the date in your iCal. Holler at my squad like Vital. This my lifestyle. From the outside, I'm lights out. The name's out of sight, and you watching me right now. I know you feel it. I put your dubs up like we're in Club Trillion. That's right, I said it. They said I'd never make it, but I did it like Reddick. I need extra credit. I'm catching a wave when they hit in my section. About to get it, you want it, you got it, you know that I'm flexing. You want it, you want it, you got it, you got it, you want it, hey. Come on, bust the move, let's go.
I was waiting for the cameo from Corey Alexander.
I didn't get here in time. I was supposed to be in the video. I had a feature. I didn't make it in time.
You were going to be featuring Nate Dogg, featuring Corey Alexander.
Exactly, but they probably would have put me in the Eagle suit, so you might not have seen my face.
Matt Rose from the outside. He's got 8. He had 11 off the bench in the semis.
And now 6 for 8 for Lipscomb from beyond the three-point arc. And that puts so much pressure on your defense for Florida Gulf Coast, especially when you've got a guy like Matthews who's used to getting downhill and getting to the rim. And now that you have to space out your defense, it's going to open up so many more driving lanes for a first-team ASUN member.
Christian Terrell loses it. Buckland to the floor. Here's Cooper. Matthews open for 3. It's good. Garrison Matthews, 14 points, 4 threes already. And the Bisons amp-tracking the Eagles here at Alico, 37-17 at the 10-minute mark of the first half. Joe Dooley's Eagles have come back from 18 down twice this season. They did it against USC Upstate. They also did it against Lipscomb in Nashville. And remember, in that second meeting against Lipscomb here, Florida Gulf Coast trailed by 17, got back to within 1. Lipscomb ultimately prevailed. But right now, if Florida Gulf Coast is going to come back, they have to find a way to slow the A-Sun's leading scorer, Garrison Matthews.
Well, Garrison Matthews has been the recipient of many great passes from Kenny Cooper, who now has 7 assists and has done a tremendous job getting Lipscomb out in transition. And Cooper actually was not even supposed to be the starting point guard this season for Coach Casey Alexander. Nathan Moran was supposed to be the guy, was injured in the offseason. And Coach Alexander talked about the fact that Cooper has been good for them, but of course he's playing ahead of schedule. But the sophomore has been spectacular here in his first A-Sun championship. And really, when you look at Lipscomb to start this game, Anish, you can tell that this is a team that may want this a little bit more. Florida Gulf Coast has played this game 3 straight years here on their home court. Lipscomb, this is their first time, and they have taken advantage of it early.
Casey Alexander told me, just getting to the NCAA tournament and seeing your name on the bracket, that in itself is incredible exposure. We had almost 19 million people on ESPN.com fill out a bracket last year. Everybody is seeing that name, Lipscomb. Doesn't matter how long you hang in there. Garrison Matthews might get the Bisons to the dance floor by himself.
But that's the thing. You see how easily he was able to get to the rim because Florida Gulf Coast defense has to spread out so far to defend the great three-point shooting that we've seen thus far in this game from the Bison.
Foul is on Rose, his first. Matthews with 16. A young man with a football background. His grandfather played on a national champion football team at Ole Miss. Great-great-grandpa, the winningest head football coach in Vanderbilt history. And Matthews told me yesterday he was thinking about playing football, had a collarbone injury his junior year of high school. And at the time he had some FCS offers, focused more on basketball, was a late bloomer, so not a ton of interest. Certainly he's found his calling.
Well, if you take away the skill that he's shown us, of course, beyond the three-point arc, he's got a lot of football player in this game. He loves to get to downhill and get to the free throw line. You see him out of transition. He's not slowing up for anyone. Great job getting back that time by Florida Gulf Coast. But yet, they really haven't been able to stop this team in the half court or in transition.
Matthews, the shot fake, draws the contact, and he'll shoot 3. The foul is on Zach Johnson.
And that's that football mentality. He could have sidestepped and got one, but he wants to get to that free throw line. Loves the contact, and that's why he's one of the top guys in the country of getting to the free throw line and taking advantage of them as well.
Matthews last year played the season with a broken left hand and a sports hernia. He needed 4 off-season surgeries to correct it.
Matthews, Anish, is 6th nationally in free throw attempts and 5th in free throws made. So he's a guy that, of course, does a great job of finding his way to the rim. And when you can shoot the ball that well and as well as they've shot the ball today, it's just going to open up so many more opportunities for him to be able to drive to the rim.
Lipscomb has stolen fire from Prometheus early, 15 of 18 from the field, 7 of 9 from 3. Corey, they have 41 points with 8:49 left in this first half.
And this is a team that averages close to 82 points per game. So it's nothing new for them to score big, but they also recognize that they have had a number of comebacks against them. So they have to continue to keep their foot on the gas pedal.
Here is Gilmore. Can't get the bounce. Graham-Meyer retrieves in the corner. Pepper against Gilmore. Kicks it back out. Matthews over Goodwin. And the rebound to Gilmore. Outlet for Goodwin is awry. Here's Greg Jones, the freshman. Now Buckland, baseline. Drops it off. Graham-Meyer. The extra pass unselfish basketball by this Lipscomb team.
And Anish, what you have to love about what they're doing, they're not falling in love with the three-point. They continue to attack downhill. They're taking very good threes, but their bread and butter is getting to that rim. And when it's not an opening, they're doing a great job of sharing the basketball.
They haven't really taken any bad shots. Brandmeier with 6. Averages less than 2.5 a game.
But when you front the post, as Simmons did on that possession, you've got to have help on the backside. Florida Gulf Coast defenders are scared to help because Lipscomb has shot the three so well, so guys don't want to leave their man, which allows Brandmeier to be able to get an easy look underneath the basket.
Miscommunication with Brian Thomas. Another turnover. That's been a problem for Florida Gulf Coast this season. Not the case in the first 2 games of the tournament. They tried to get it inside to Brandmeier again. It goes off the backboard. Terrell. Goodwin turns it over against the double. Matthews catch and release. Brandmeier the offensive rebound. Buckland in and out. Matthews keeps it in bounds. Last touch, Florida Gulf Coast, Lipscomb ball. The Bisons on a great run. When we come back, Alexander meets Alexander. Corey, we'll talk to Casey Alexander, the head coach of the Bisons. Lipscomb 17 of 23. The Bisons have not missed more than 2 consecutive shots this afternoon, and they've got a 24-point lead. The winner of this game advances to the NCAA tournament. Corey with Casey Alexander.
Coach, you guys have started off 7 for 12 from 3. We talked about this hasn't been your best three-point shooting team. What got into you today?
Well, guys are ready. They came ready to perform, and they get all the credit. They're delivering for sure. Fun time.
And getting out in transition.
13.
Give me 13. He's calling it while he's talking. Getting out in transition has been a key for you guys today. You talked about your point guard, Kenny Cooper, playing a tremendous game at the point, already 7 assists. Did you have anything extra special to share with him today?
He's just came ready. He's delivering the ball, doing what we need him to do. It's been really good. We talked to our team first round. Now we might be in the second round. Long way to go.
And you've had comebacks, of course, for both teams in these games. What are you telling your team now about how they have to continue to play?
Way too much time. Way too much time. We're here to play 40 minutes no matter what.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Coach.
A lot to like if you're Casey Alexander. Our 27-point first-half lead. Here's Christian Carlisle. Missed 6 games with an ankle injury. Came back in the semis. And a putback by Trey Simmons, the transfer out of VCU. Rose has been a factor, 11 points off the bench in this first half. Foul is on Gilmore. Matt Rose to the free throw line, junior from Lexington, Kentucky, transferred from Sanford. One of 6 children. He's got twin sisters, Scarlett and Lauren, and triplet brothers, James, Clay, and Neil. ESPN's Champ Week continues tonight with 2 more women's championship game matchups. We've got the Big Ten Championship game at 7 Eastern and the Pac-12 at 9 Eastern. Both will air on ESPN2 and also stream live on the ESPN app. It has been almost a flawless first half from the Bisons.
And one thing Coach Alexander said, too much time left to go in this game. He knows how Florida Gulf Coast can come back, especially here in their own building. So one of the things he's going to continue to preach to his team is to make sure they keep their foot on the gas pedal, stay aggressive, and keep getting downhill, trying to put the pressure on that defense to keep them off the free throw line.
And for people wondering, the nickname for Lipscomb, yes, it is the Bisons with an S. The plural of bison commonly is Bison. Same as the singular, as Simmons is there on the putback, but the unabridged Oxford English Dictionary includes bisons as proper usage, just to let people know we're not making anything up.
Yeah, I'm sure that the first time I said it, there was somebody at home watching saying, oh, wait a minute, that's not the way you say that, but that is actually the proper way to see it. As Matthews gets back to the free throw line the second time in this game, he's been fouled on a three-point shot.
And that's 2 on Zach Johnson, first-team all-conference guard for Florida Gulf Coast.
But that's just a byproduct of a guy who is on fire, and you're trying to stay as close to him as you possibly can and give him no good looks. Zach Johnson just trying to contest that shot, but Matthews' body coming forward gets him back to the free throw line, where, of course, he's always dangerous.
Championship week rolls on Monday, the West Coast Conference semis. First game tips at 9 Eastern, the second game at 11:30 Eastern. First game on ESPN, the next one on ESPN2. And Matthews now has his 21st 20-point game of the season,
with 5 minutes remaining in the first half. And, you know, when you look at this and people will say, well, he's having an out-of-body experience. He's having a very good game, but this young man has a career high of 43 points. So scoring is not a problem for him. 15th nationally, but off to a special performance thus far, and probably the biggest game of his college career.
Johnson in trouble. It comes back to Scott. Tornadoes inside, off the window for 2. The 28-point lead that Lipscomb had just a moment ago, the largest deficit of the season for Florida Gulf Coast. And the Eagles have just been out of sorts here in this first half while Lipscomb can't miss.
Well, the thing is, for the Eagles, it's about getting stops. If they can get stops and then come down, they don't feel like they're in a rush to have to score and taking quick shots. That one may have been a little quick for Christian Terrell on that one. But they don't have to take quick shots. They've done a great job when they've gotten the ball inside to their bigs and taking advantage of their size matchup.
Pepper will try it.
And see, Anise, this is the part of the game where you see Lipscomb starting to fall in love with the three-pointer, maybe a little bit too much because they've gotten off to a great start. And even though they still lead by 26.
A double dribble against the Eagles as we check in with Chris in the studio.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by LegalZoom. Get legal help for your business and family at LegalZoom.com. And Travelocity. Wander wisely.
Florida Gulf Coast has been to the NCAA tournament 3 of the last 5 years. They've come back from 18 down twice this season, but they have faced a deficit of as big as 28 in this game. And right now, Lipscomb's offense has just been in sync. They haven't taken many bad shots. Matthews has been unstoppable. He's got 23.
And Nish, I've got to read this to you. Florida Gulf Coast has held 6 A-Sun opponents to 60 points or less during the regular season. In the other 42 league games played, there were only 5 total occurrences of a team being held to 60 or less. Lipscomb is going to get 60 in the first half. They are not slowing down.
This has been an impressive half of basketball by the Bisons.
And for the record, Florida Gulf Coast is the best defensive team in the A-Sun by far.
And an offensive foul. First on Matthews.
And we talked about Matthews, and I'm sure Coach Alexander thought that his team was starting to fall in love with the 3. So out the timeout, he goes inside to Garrison Matthews, who has an advantage over Zach Johnson on the post and takes advantage of that. Matthews, not just a three-point shooter. He loves to be able to play in the trenches and mixes it up tremendously. Coach Alexander says they don't do much in the mid-range. It's feast or famine. It's at the rim or it's a 3. And Garrison Matthews has been great in both those areas thus far.
De Niro Mercurius inside to Simmons.
Now, what does your nickname have to be if your first name is De Niro?
Mucho?
No. Money.
Mucho De Niro?
Yeah, I get that. That's an adjective. That's not a noun. A nickname has to be a noun.
It doesn't have to be a noun.
Oh, see, there you go, making up other words.
Well, I mean, it's redundant, isn't it? It's like ATM machine. If your nickname is Money and your name
he's
is
a shooter.
Dinero.
And he's a shooter. Come on. Money.
What about change?
No, you don't want that. You like the stuff that feels, not that folds, not the stuff that rattles. Come on.
Second foul on Brandmeier. Simmons to the line. He began his career at VCU. Actually played with current teammate Michael Gilmore there briefly. Simmons, in that Havoc style, was not the ideal fit. He's a former offensive lineman in high school.
But a very good fit here at Florida Gulf Coast. And Florida Gulf Coast traditionally is a 3-out, 2-in, beat you up in the paint. They actually led the nation in points in the paint a season ago. But there has been a change for Coach Dooley based upon injuries to his bigs early in the year. They went more to a 4-out, 1-in style, in which you would have thought would have given him a better matchup versus Lipscomb. But Lipscomb, regardless, it didn't matter what kind of defense they came out. The way Lipscomb has played offensively, I'm not sure that there was anything Florida Gulf Coast could have done differently to slow down the Bisons.
Mercurius need that one about 5 rows into the stands.
That was a knee?
Yeah, that was off the knee.
Wow.
Off the knee.
That's pretty impressive. When I saw the flight of that ball, I thought it had to be a foot.
Sounds like somebody who may have done that once or twice.
I kicked the ball or two in my day. Went much further than that, though.
If you're Joe Dooley, what's your message at halftime to Florida Gulf Coast?
Just to continue to keep playing and play with your style. Follow the scouting report, but of course you're going to have to extend your defense a bit to be able to take away the three-point shooting. But you have to say there's no way they can shoot the ball this well again in the second half. But when you get bounces like that on your opponent's home court, as Garrison Matthews got on that last possession, I'm not sure that they can't shoot the ball like this the entire game.
26 for Matthews in the first half. He's gone toe-to-toe with Florida Gulf Coast on his own.
And Kenny Cooper once again getting into the paint. Turns down an easy layup to find Garrison Matthews, knowing Matthews is hot, and it doesn't get any hotter than that.
Eagles pressing in the backcourt. Korn able to clear. Turns it over. Goodwin attacking against Cooper. And a blocking foul on Kenny Cooper.
Kenny Cooper trying to get back in transition, and when you've got Brandon Goodwin coming at you full speed, that's a difficult task to be able to do. Goodwin trying to go with the Euro step. Makes Cooper try to move over into the foul, causing the foul on Cooper, picking up the block.
Goodwin had 22 in the first game against Lipscomb. That was a win, 28 in the next one.
And Florida Gulf Coast was able to come back in their game at Lipscomb down 18 by using the zone defense and also by the full court pressure. So Coach Dooley now try to employ that pressure, but Lipscomb handling it very well. Florida Gulf Coast is going to have to get some stops in the half court. One guy that we really haven't talked much about is Rob Marbury, but Garrison Matthews has been so good. He's taken up the slack for both of the first team members for the Bison.
Terrell, no good. And to your point about FGCU's defensive adjustments in the two games, yesterday at Lipscomb's practice, they practiced a lot against the zone and a lot against pressure.
Well, because, you know, Coach Alexander knows that's the two ways that Florida Gulf Coast has hurt them this season. But he's very comfortable with his team. And, of course, coming into this building where they won their last two games, they came in with the level of confidence that they had taken care of the issues that Florida Gulf Coast has used to hurt them in the past. And you see a 30-point lead with a minute and 4 remaining in the half has definitely come into play.
Garrison Matthews, 26 points. Florida Gulf Coast, 28. Dinero Mercurius picking up the foul, his first. And Marbury to the line for a 1-and-1. Lipscomb has hit 9 threes in this first half. They're shooting 69% from the field. Free throw good by Marbury. 76ers and Bucks, part of NBA Sunday. Embiid, Simmons, and the young Sixers taking on Greek Freak. And the Bucks coverage starts with NBA Countdown at 7:30 Eastern. Rob Marbury, junior out of Nashville, began his career at Western Kentucky. Normally in the half court, they run the offense through him. They haven't really had to work much in the half court in this first half.
Well, this is the most points allowed by Florida Gulf Coast than they have in school history. 60 points in the half. An amazing offensive effort thus far by the Bisons in this game. And when you look at a 32-point deficit, I'm not sure that it's possible to come back from that in the half.
Terrell had it knocked away. The last touch, Brammeyer.
You know, Anish, as I say that, I have to think back of the week that we've seen in college basketball thus far. And the craziness that we've seen, especially in Louisville, Kentucky, with Virginia winning with 0.9 seconds left, scoring 5 points in 0.9 seconds. I may have to take that statement back about being able to come back from 32 points down. It's going to be difficult, but I'm not going to put it past anybody from what we've seen in college basketball this season.
It would border on the improbable and the miraculous, but Florida Gulf Coast is built to score points in bunches.
But they would need a basket right here. I think taking a little bit of momentum into halftime will be huge for the Eagles to be able to come up with the bucket on this possession.
Goodwin hits the three, and it's 60-31.
And now if they can get a stop, just a little bit of momentum, Coach Alexander going to use a timeout to try to set up a last offensive possession. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Coach Dooley change up his defense here in this last possession. But we can tell you right now, Garrison Matthews has been on fire. We talked about a heat check from him earlier. He didn't make that one shot that was a heat check, but he's come back and made about 6 more ever since. Garrison Matthews from all over the floor, knocking down 3 after 3. But it hasn't been just about the 3-pointers. He's done his job at the rim, at the line, and even on defense. He's been all over the floor here this evening.
You alluded to it earlier. Lipscomb employs his style where it is all about the extra pass. And Matthews, with all the points that he has, all 26, he hasn't been selfish. Lipscomb has 20 field goals. They've assisted on 16.
But look how efficient he is. He has 26 points on 13 field goal attempts. And that is unreal efficiency. And that's the way that Coach Casey Alexander wants to be able to play.
Rose, he's had a nice first half. Simmons with the rebound. Final seconds. Goodwin. It'll count if it goes, but it falls well short. And Lipscomb with a 60-point blitz in the first half. Garrison Matthews, the leading scorer in the A-Sun, already 4 points better than his average. He's got 26. We send it to the studio now. It's the Audi halftime report. Here's Chris Connor. ESPN's Champ Week presented by Principal. The winner of today's A-Sun Championship advances to the NCAA tournament. And right now it's the 2 seed, Lipscomb. The Bisons with a first half stampede, 60 points. They shot it well from the field, on fire from 3. They shared the ball. Garrison Matthews went off, but it was the ensemble cast, Corey Alexander.
It really was. It was truly a team effort by Lipscomb. When they got off started in transition, Kenny Cooper running a great show right now. 9 assists, 0 turnovers for the sophomore point guard. Matt Rose knocking down 3 threes. Everyone getting involved, sharing the basketball to where they would have actually outscored Florida Gulf Coast 34-31 if it were not for Garrison Matthews, the junior, the A-Sun's leading scorer. 26 first half points. He did it outside. He did it inside. He did it outside again. As a matter of fact, he did it outside 5 times, 5 for 9 from 3. even a friendly bounce on Florida Gulf Coast home court.
All 4 of these players in our Star Watch first-team all-conference selections. Rob Marbury, who averages 20 in conference play, only 4. It hasn't mattered. They haven't had to play through him that much because Lipscomb is getting so many baskets in transition.
And they've been able to do that. They've spread the floor and forced Florida Gulf Coast to have to extend this defense because of the way they've shot the 3. 9 for 17 from beyond the arc in the first half. 16 assists to 6 turnovers for Lipscomb.
There is Cooper, 9 assists, no turnovers in the first 20 minutes. Florida Gulf Coast has won this tournament the last 2 years. Lipscomb with a win today would go dancing for the first time in program history.
And Denise, one thing that's important for Lipscomb at this point is to not be complacent and think that they're going to run a bunch of clock and allow the time just to run out in this game and not get quality looks. They have to continue to play the same way they played in the first half. They don't have to be as 3 happy, but yet they still have to continue to be aggressive, especially trying to attack the rim.
The shot clock resets to 20 seconds off the kick ball. And also, if Lipscomb starts to get too complacent within their offense, that takes away their biggest strength, which is scoring early.
They had a mistake on the shot clock. The shot clock went to 20 seconds. There was only 2 on the shot clock.
Well, the shot clock didn't start when they inbounded the ball.
You know what? Actually, they did reset after the kick ball.
Right, to 20.
Which bailed them out, yeah, but it did not
start.
Right.
So now they've taken a second off, so 19 on the shot clock. Eli Pepper will inbound for Lipscomb, which shot 67% from the field in the opening half. Matthews. No gold at the end of that rainbow, but an offensive rebound. And now Cooper lays it in with the left hand.
I tell you what, as great as Matthews has been, you've got to give Kenny Cooper a lot of credit for the way that he's come out and run this offense for Lipscomb here today.
Goodwin's 3. Casey Alexander wanted basket interference.
Maybe it's that basket. We saw Garrison Matthews make a shot with that many bounces in the first half from pretty much close to that same spot. So maybe it's just that basket. Florida Gulf Coast will have that same type of fortune here in the second half.
Not working at the other rim as Matthews has that one go in and out. Christian Terrell's been quiet today. He's had a nice tournament. Denied at the rim. Pepper the rebound. Eli Pepper, 3rd in the conference in rebounding. Buckland, air ball.
And so 3 straight 3-pointers other than the Cooper layup for Lipscomb on the offensive end of the floor, and there have been 3 misses. And I'm sure Coach Alexander talked to his team about taking good 3-pointers, smart 3-pointers, not rush shots. And I think a couple of those have been rushed here so far to start the second half.
Terrell kicks it into the corner. Here's Goodwin. Now Zach Johnson. Down low. Simmons. Good defense by Marbury. And a reach in on Zach Johnson, his 3rd foul.
And that's a play where Zach Johnson, of course, one of the top steals guys in the A-Sun, just wanting to make a play to see if he can try to find something to do to pick up the momentum. But when you're as important to his team as he is, he can't afford to put himself in foul trouble and not be able to be as aggressive as he would like to defensively throughout the remainder of this game.
Marbury, great feed to Cooper. That's something Marbury does so well. Pass out of the post.
And that's why they love to play through Marbury. Coach Alexander told us, although Garrison Matthews averages over 20 points per game, they don't run many sets for him. They run everything through Marbury and allow the team to be able to make reads and cuts off of when he catches the basketball.
Johnson hits the 3 over Buckland. Now Matthews picked up by Johnson. Gilmore hounding Pepper.
And we have to give this crowd a lot of credit, regardless as to what has happened here in the first half. They're still very involved in this game, but Lipscomb has brought a strong contingent as well, and maybe that's where some of the noise is coming from as Pepper knocks down another three.
Terrell lost it. Cooper to Buckland. Cooper gets it back. And a foul. And that is 3 on Simmons.
And the reason that Lipscomb loves to play through Rob Marbury is because he is an excellent passer. And you see Zach Johnson falling asleep and Cooper cutting backdoor. And then Eli Pepper continuing to do what Lipscomb has done so well today, stepping out and knocking down another three-point. You look at this Lipscomb lineup, and you would think that Eli Pepper would actually be the center at 2 inches taller than Marbury, but Marbury at 6'7", Pepper at 6'9". Pepper actually is the stretch 4, where Marbury at 6'7" is the center and the guy that they like to play through on the interior. A little bit of a difference, but it's working for the Vikings right now.
It is a 32-point lead for Lipscomb, the largest of the afternoon for the Bisons. And it would take a Herculean, borderline impossible comeback for Florida Gulf Coast right now. Johnson's 3 short, follows the miss, up and under, and Zach Johnson will shoot 2. Fouls on Aaron Korn, just his first. Now this one sort of combines those 2 18-point comebacks.
It really does. And what happens when you get down this much, you feel as though you have to try to make it up with the three-pointer. And for Florida Gulf Coast, and I'm not even going to say that they don't need to make threes. They're going to have to make a lot of threes, but they have to continue to attack the paint and maybe play inside out, kick out for threes instead of taking contested threes, knowing that Lipscomb is going to guard the three-point line early in possessions, because that's the one thing that can hurt them.
That's something Johnson can do. He gets into passing lanes, the steal, the dunk attempt, but able to draw the foul on Buckland. And Zach Johnson back to the free throw line to shoot 2.
And Zach Johnson is a tremendous athlete. We've seen him on a number of highlight reels throughout his career here with the Eagles, trying to get another one, but Buckland making a good play right there and not allowing him to be able to have that easy dunk and forcing him to go to the free throw line and try to earn his points there.
Johnson, a big tennis fan. You mentioned his defense, second only to Kenny Cooper in steals per game in the Atlantic Sun. And Zach Johnson, a first-team all-conference selection this year. 2 years ago, he was the hero in this conference championship game with the game-winning block.
A huge block shot in overtime, I believe it was. Zach Johnson coming up, and that was actually the first time with Joe Dooley that Florida Gulf Coast was able to go to the NCAA tournament. So we talked about the Dunk City, but that was Andy Enfield as the coach.
Knocked out of bounds by Goodwin. Active hands from Florida Gulf Coast, but Lipscomb still with a 28-point lead and the under 16 media timeout. Let's check in with Chris. When we take a look at teams that Corey Alexander thinks are moving up, brought to you by Degree Deodorant. You made a halftime change on this list.
I did make a halftime change, but I'm going to start with Nevada. My little brothers, Cody and Caleb Martin, Oak Hill guys who are playing great. I think they can make a run this year in the NCAA tournament. Middle Tennessee's with Nick King, and of course, let's get giddy with it, Giddy Potts. They are more than capable of making a run. New Mexico State's defense, be careful of New Mexico State throughout the tournament. And then, of course, Lipscomb with Garrison Matthews continuing to bomb away from the outside was my halftime adjustment. Florida Gulf Coast was on my list, but when you watch a team go for 60 first half points, you have got to look at them as a team that could possibly make some noise in March. And this was actually a design set. Garrison Matthews coming off another screen, catch and shoot, giving him an opportunity to add to his tab, as I believe he's now up to 29.
29, so that is the second time in these 3 games in this ASUN tournament he's gone for 29. went for 23 in the other. He hit 5 threes in the quarters and the semis, 6 today with more than 15 minutes to play. Zach Johnson bombs from the outside, 72-45. So to go back to your graphic, Lipscomb likely ends up as a 16 seed.
You know, if Florida Gulf Coast maybe would not have been a 16 seed, and Casey Alexander with a 27-point lead just got a technical foul. And if there's anything that could ignite this crowd more so than that, Florida Gulf Coast has to try to find a way now with 15 minutes remaining in this game to take advantage of this. This could be a possible 5-point possession for the Eagles to try to cut into this league. Coach Alexander coaching hard over here, and he's done a good job staying on the referees this entire game. That time maybe just a bit too much, which allows Florida Gulf Coast to knock down 2 free throws and still have a chance to put points on the board on this possession.
Mercurius, their best free throw shooter, now 36 of 39 on the season.
Clear the ISO for us, guys.
Carlisle, Goodwin, Gilmore, Mercurius, and Johnson on the floor for Florida Gulf Coast. It's Cooper, Marbury, Matthews, Korn, and Rose for Lipscomb. Goodwin for 3. Off the front rim, offensive rebound being fought for, and it comes to Mercurius. Goodwin down the lane, kicks it out to Johnson. There's the 3, and it is a 5-point possession. It looked like Aaron Korn may have took a misadvertent hit, and he comes out of the game. A 9-0 run by Florida Gulf Coast. Cooper is bumped on the drive. Foul is on Carlisle, his second.
Brandon Goodwin driving to the rim and going up. Korn taking a bit of a hit there off of a beautiful feed from Goodman. But Zach Johnson, who knocks down another 3. And now a 22-point game. Still a long way to go, but much more manageable than the 32 that we've seen Lipscomb hold earlier in this game.
Matthews. That's good. If you're Joe Dooley, do you start looking at this in increments? Get it under 20, get it under 15.
I don't think that does you any good. At the end of the day, you have to just continue to play each possession and try to get something positive every time down on the offensive end of the floor, and then find a way to come up with some stops. But Garrison Matthews is making it extremely difficult to do that when he's taking tough shots and making tough shots, falling on his back foot, fading away from the rim, and still hitting nothing but the bottoms of the net for 3.
Johnson back to the free throw line. He's got 21 to lead Florida Gulf Coast. And now for the Eagles, the more you can do at the stripe, the better. Score without taking any time off the clock.
And it also allows you, if you're making your free throws, to be able to set up your pressure. But one of the things that Lipscomb has done a great job of is when they have been pressed and broke the pressure, they have tried to be aggressive and score, not sitting back and trying to be passive, allowing Florida Gulf Coast to maintain some momentum in this game.
And we got a technical foul.
I believe we may have a double technical. Marbury and
double
Gilmore.
Technicals.
Marbury and Gilmore both getting tangled up before play even started. And the officials recognizing that early. And at this point, with tensions flaring the way that they have, you want to make sure you keep these tempers under control And you see the two guys on the free throw line is actually where it started. You see a little bit of pushing between Marbury and Gilmore running back down the floor. A little bit of a conversation. And honestly, in my opinion, a great job by the officials cleaning that up now, not allowing either one of these guys to get involved in any extracurricular activities. And both coaches doing a good job of actually getting both players out and giving them a little bit of a blow and allowing them some time to calm down.
Cooper across the timeline. Drops it off for Pepper. Fouled hard. And Eli Pepper to the free throw line.
And that's a great example of continuing to be aggressive against the pressure and not allowing Florida Gulf Coast to make Lipscomb passive on the offensive end of the floor.
ESPN's Champ Week continues tonight. 2 more women's title game matchups. The Big Ten Championship at 7 p.m. Eastern and the Pac-12 at 9 Eastern, both on ESPN2. ASUN Championship, Florida Gulf Coast and Lipscomb. And if that is on Cooper, that is going to be number 4. And it is Kenny Cooper, who had the 9 assists in the first half, just picked up his 4th with about 14 minutes to go.
Well, and the reason why that is such a big play is because Kenny Cooper is doing a great job of handling the full court pressure by Florida Gulf Coast. We saw him. He was actually the guy that broke the pressure on the last possession and got it over to Pepper to get fouled and get to the free throw line. So now you have to look at others to be able to handle that basketball. And you would hope for Lipscomb fans that they're able to do the same type of job that Cooper has done thus far.
ASUN Championship from Alico Arena in Fort Myers, Florida, the home of Florida Gulf Coast. You remember Dunk City 5 years ago as a 15 seed, getting all the way to the Sweet 16. Lipscomb turns it over. Perhaps the door is slightly ajar for the Eagles.
And you see a byproduct already. You take your point guard off the floor. We told you early in this game, Nathan Moran, who would have been the starting point guard, was injured in the offseason. Kenny Cooper has been the point guard all season long, but he's the only point guard that Lipscomb has, while Zach Johnson has now gotten hot.
Johnson's got 25, 5 of 7 from 3. And we get a foul on Goodwin in the backcourt. Remember, in the first meeting between these two, Florida Gulf Coast trailed by 18 with 13 minutes to play, came back and won. Right now, the deficit 19, 13:44 to go.
And the deficit was actually up to 32. So you're already talking about ground that they've made up.
Possession arrow, Florida Gulf Coast. Uncle Mo is with Dunk City right now, despite the deficit.
And Anish, this is a potential. Casey Alexander would have loved to get a technical foul. You'll see Zach Johnson grab Garrison Matthews around the neck. That was a foul. But Coach Alexander, with already having a technical foul, is unable to say much at all to the officials.
Officials coming to the scores table saying no music. But on a live ball.
You see, this is a foul. Zach Johnson has his hand around Garrison Matthews' neck. No foul called. If Coach Alexander did not already have a technical foul, that is a possession he would have gotten one.
And now Goodwin fouled going to the basket. Foul is on Rose, his first. Marbury had picked up his 3rd. Cooper on the bench with 4. And Goodwin, MVP of this tournament a season ago, and the ASUN Player of the Year at the free throw line. Lipscomb scored 60 points in the first half, played almost flawlessly. Right now, no Cooper, no Marbury on the court.
Well, that's the difference. Another turnover.
was a 32-point game at one point in the second half. Casey Alexander looking to mute this crowd and mute the Eagles' momentum. A timeout by Lipscomb. Bison still up by 18.
Exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty stands with you. And Boost Mobile.
The A-Sun has had some NCAA tournament success. 2014, Mercer getting to the second round, knocking off Duke in the first round. And in 2013, Dunk City took America by storm, winning 2 games and getting to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed, the first 15 seed to do so. Goodwin in the lane. And the lead for Lipscomb down to 16.
And Anish, since Cooper has been out the last minute and a half, there have been 3 straight turnovers for Lipscomb on their offensive end of the floor, and they also have had a hard time guarding Florida Gulf Coast. Brandon Goodwin is able to find his way into the paint with very little resistance and able to knock down the giant killer over Pepper.
Both teams in the bonus. Zach Johnson back in for Florida Gulf Coast. He's got 3 fouls, but he's the leading scorer tonight for the Eagles.
Yeah, it's 28 points for Zach Johnson. We talked about Garrison Matthews and what he's been able to do. He's knocked down a couple of threes here in the second half, but right now, Lipscomb can't get the ball across half court to be able to get it in the hands of Matthews.
Johnson from 18, air ball. Johnson nearly picked up his 4th. Matthews looking for help over the timeline to Buckland. Marbury, rather Pepper, back into the game. That is Eli Pepper. And he'll go to the line to shoot 2. Marbury still on the bench. Foul is on Mercurius.
And Lipscomb finally getting an opportunity in the half court, gets the ball inside to Pepper. Pepper playing with his back to the basket is not his strength. And now he misses another free throw. And when you look at the recipe for a comeback, it always involves the opposing team having to give you opportunities, especially missing free throws.
1 out of 2 for Pepper, a 53% free throw shooter. Goodwin puts it on the floor, off balance, and he will shoot 2. The foul on Buckland. Talking to Brandon Goodwin yesterday, he felt he could win his one-on-one matchups against Lipscomb. He said he didn't think the Bisons could stay in front of him.
Well, and one guy that does have a chance of staying in front of him and has done a better job of that than anyone is Kenny Cooper. But that's part of the reason why Kenny Cooper has 4 fouls and is now on the bench. But you see what Kenny Cooper's biggest contribution to this game has been is his ball handling and allowing his team to be able to play in transition and not turn it over against the pressure from Florida Gulf Coast. But with him watching, the offense has been stagnant for the Bisons since he sat down about 3 minutes ago.
Rob Marbury, first team all-conference forward, checking in. Eli Pepper to the bench.
And just like that, Dooley going to combat that with Gilmore coming back into the game. It was these 2 guys who got involved with the double technical earlier. We'll see if the emotions are still flaring between Marbury and Gilmore.
Carlisle, a very good perimeter defender, 23 in white. Buckland hounded by Johnson.
And every pass is contested right now for Lipscomb. And that offense is out of sorts.
Matthews, back iron, rebound to Gilmore. Johnson from the outside. A 32-point lead has been whittled down to 13.
Well, the first half belonged to Garrison Matthews, and the second half has belonged to Zach Johnson. He's been the hero here before, and right now he's planning on doing it again, making this a 13-point game.
78-65, Lipscomb in the ASUN Championship. Right now we see how Texas's Mo Bamba is putting on an elite effort to win college basketball's highest individual honor. It's our Wendy's Wooden Watch.
I'm Mo Bamba. I go to the University of Texas. I hail from Harlem, New York. And my goal every time I take the court is to take your heart.
Bamba with that 8-foot Condor wingspan, leading the Big 12 in rebounding and blocks. But right now, this ASUN championship, which looked to be over early in the second half when Lipscomb had a 32-point lead. Now the outcome up in the air. Florida Gulf Coast can come back in a hurry and in a flurry. They've cut a 32-point deficit down to 14, and with 11:42 left, plenty of time for the Eagles.
You know, and Casey Alexander has had to coach this season with a new point guard. And Coach Alexander, who was a very good point guard for Rich Bird, a great coach at Belmont, and then was an assistant coach there for 16 years, recognized the importance of having his point guard on the floor. With Nathan Moran getting injured in the offseason, and then when you see what Kenny Cooper has been able to do coming into this year, as Zach Johnson continues to be aggressive, traveling on that play. But what Kenny Cooper has been able to do and helping this team, you have to ask, how long can the Bisons go without bringing Cooper back into this game?
Johnson again, active hands. And we get a whistle. Inadvertent whistle by the officials. But Corey, you mentioned it earlier when Casey Alexander picked up the technical. Florida Gulf Coast had a chance for a 5-point play. They got a 5-point play. Since that coach's technical, as you watch Johnson being aggressive with the 3 fouls, since that coach's technical, the Eagles are on a 21-3 run.
And that also has a byproduct to do with the fact that this young man, Kenny Cooper, the point guard for Lipscomb, who has played a phenomenal basketball game, has had to sit and watch over the last 5 minutes after picking up his 4th foul. And I'm not sure that Coach, even though there's still over 11 minutes left to go in this game, I'm not sure that Coach Alexander can go much further in this game without him on the floor and pretty much tell him, hey, look, don't play defense. You just have to handle the ball against this pressure, because right now, Lipscomb can't get the ball across half court against Florida Gulf Coast defense.
Johnson, no good. Goodwin Skine for the rebound. Leading Florida Gulf Coast in scoring, rebounding, and assists. And Mercurius! It's an 11-point game. Korn in front of the pack, trying to go behind the back. Now Matthews.
And Anise, when you speed a team up, even in the half court, it's just like a turnover, forcing them often to make bad, and they can take bad shots.
And we get a foul on Florida Gulf Coast. They entered Pepper's cylinder of verticality. It's on Goodwin.
Anise, you like to call him mucho. I like to call him money, but he's Mercurius from beyond the 3, knocking down a big one, making it an 11-point game.
So you mentioned Kenny Cooper on the bench with the 4 fouls. At what point would you bring him in?
Now. I got to get him back in, and I would tell him, don't play defense. Do not foul out. Whatever you have to do, concede the layup, but handle the basketball versus this pressure, and just try to see if he can stem the tide. You get him breaks when you need to, but the reality behind it is, if they don't get Kenny Cooper back on the floor, Florida Gulf Coast is going to come back, and not only come back, they're going to win this game with the momentum that is happening in the gym right now.
It would be an unbelievable comeback if it happens. Florida Gulf Coast trailed by 29 at the half, by as many as 32. Winner of this game to the NCAA tournament. Goodwin kicks to the corner. Johnson. He's 8-3. He's got 34. And it's a 10-point game. And another turnover by Lipscomb. And does Kenny Cooper come into the game? Goodwin called for a carry.
But you know what, Anish? Even though that's a turnover, it's a dead ball, which allows Florida Gulf Coast to set their defense up again and apply that pressure and see if they can get the basketball back again. I'd be interested to know exactly how many shot attempts Lipscomb even has here in this second half. We could probably count on one hand how many times they've been over half court since Cooper's been out of the game.
Another turnover for Lipscomb. The answer to your question is 10. 10 shot attempts in the second half.
And those are rush shots. They're not even good shots, especially since Cooper has been out.
Timeout, Casey Alexander. The largest deficits overcome in Division I history. We saw it happen this year, just a few weeks ago. Drexel and Delaware, that was a 34-point game. Duke came back from 32 down against Tulane in 1950. Kentucky from 31 down to beat LSU in 1994. Florida Gulf Coast trailed by 32. If they are able to pull this off, it would match the second biggest comeback in Division I history.
And when you think of the environment that they're in right now, these two teams with the history that they have, already an 18-point comeback earlier in this season versus Lipscomb, Florida Gulf Coast has. And then in their last game, even though Lipscomb was able to hang on and win it, Florida Gulf Coast came back from a big deficit. And that was a game where Lipscomb had 24 turnovers, and their turnovers continue to mount up in this game.
Terrell on the putback attempt, and the rebound secured by Buckland. Cooper remains on the bench out of the timeout. Matthews in a double team, tied up. Jump ball, possession arrow, Lipscomb.
I have never seen such a tale of two halves with a team and their level of confidence. And again, I understand the importance of the point guard. You know how important I think point guards are. But right now, with a veteran upper-class team, you would expect someone to be able to step up and make a play. Garrison Matthews would be my first choice for Lipscomb. But even Matthews has become passive. He knocked down 2 3-pointers early here in the second half with Kenny Cooper on the floor. Since then, I don't believe Matthews has had a shot, and if he has, it has been extremely rushed.
It's been an avalanche of turnovers without Cooper, and also the transition game has been virtually non-existent after Lipscomb thrived in those unsettled situations in the first half.
But it's been non-existent because Florida Gulf Coast has pretty much scored every time down the floor. We talk about their pressure, but you see another turnover.
A shot clock violation this time, and the Eagles, Corey, have a chance to get this deficit to single digits.
A 16-2 advantage, points off turnovers for Florida Gulf Coast here in the second half. And there's 2 more and an opportunity for 3 for Brandon Goodwin attacking the rim. Brandon Goodwin, when he gets his shoulders going downhill, it's a load to try to stop him getting to the rim, able to absorb the contact, and goes over top with the opportunity for a three-point play. And Coach Alexander can go no longer. Kenny Cooper is now back on the floor.
(81-73), and Cooper draws the foul on Terrell. Lipscomb in the double bonus, so Cooper comes in. Floodaway gets to the free throw line for 2 shots.
Now, this is a point where I honestly may have a sub at the table to take Cooper off the floor defensively right now, but you may not be able to get him back in even if they do score from an offensive standpoint. So Coach Alexander going to have to live with this young sophomore being able to handle the pressure and, more importantly, stay out of foul trouble. Without him on the floor for the remaining 9:08, I'm not sure Lipscomb has a chance to win this game.
Cooper way off with that first free throw attempt. Gets the second. And Eli Pepper, just as you predicted, Corey, comes in for Kenny Cooper, defense for offense.
Hey, he's not named Alexander for nothing. That's a very smart man right there. He knows what he's doing on the sidelines.
Cousins, right?
That's my cousin Casey.
Goodwin hits the three, and it's a 2-possession game.
But this is the problem. When Florida Gulf Coast scores, now they're able to set up their pressure, and you're asking players like Pepper to make plays, and it just doesn't work.
But Eagles eyeing a historic comeback in this ASUN championship. Gilmore, three is in and out. Pepper the rebound. Matthews over to Pepper, and that's what Lipscomb did so well in the first 20 minutes.
And that is a huge bucket just for the confidence alone for Lipscomb. We're now talking about an 8-point game, but that bucket means a lot to them because they have struggled mightily just getting the ball across half court. So just seeing it go in the basket is a huge confidence booster.
There's Johnson, he's got 34. Terrell, three, in and out, tip back to Goodwin. He'll launch and connect! Matthews escapes. Over to Marbury. The basket will count, plus the foul.
And give Garrison Matthews credit. He was aggressive against the trap, did not allow himself to get caught in dead man's corner. But right now, Florida Gulf Coast has all the momentum on their side. Brandon Goodwin, off of the offensive rebound, is able to knock down yet another three. The Eagles are flying.
Zach Johnson, 34 points, and he's done most of his work in the second half.
Anish, when Garrison Matthews went into the halftime locker room with 26 points, if you told us that someone else in this game would have more points than he, I never would have believed you. But Zach Johnson has stepped up big time for Florida Gulf Coast here in this second half. His total is at 34, and with 7:41 remaining, I know he's not done. He's been the hero on this court before with a game-saving block to send Florida Gulf Coast to the NCAA tournament, but it's his scoring that's getting it done here today.
Johnson's had a big tournament, 26 points in the quarters, 17 in the semis. He's got 8 threes this afternoon, blocked that time by Buckland. Here comes Matthews. Had a little trouble with it, nearly a travel. Marbury off his hands. A Lipscomb turnover once again. Goodwin hits from the outside. Florida Gulf Coast within 5. 30 for Goodwin. Pepper Matthews has been quiet in the second half, 26 in the first half. Marbury against Gilmore. Rob Marbury doing work. We want to remind you, those of you looking to watch MLS at the top of the hour, that game will start on ESPN News. Mercurius, not close. Winner of this ASUN championship goes to the NCAA tournament. Mercurius threw it off a Lipscomb player, and it's Florida Gulf Coast ball. Florida Gulf Coast trailed by as many as 32. That deficit was in the second half. If they pull this off, improbable, almost impossible, a historic comeback if the Eagles can find a way. But Lipscomb's still in the lead. The Bisons looking for their first NCAA tournament berth. Florida Gulf Coast looking to make it 3 straight trips to the dance.
But you see every pass contested. No room to breathe at all for the Bisons when they're on offense. Full court, half court, regardless. The energy has picked up significantly for Florida Gulf Coast on the defensive end of the floor because of the way they've been able to play offensively.
Buckland is fouled on the drive after multiple spins, and he will shoot 2. They get Mercurius.
And if this is the way that Lipscomb is going to have to beat Florida Gulf Coast, I'm sure Coach Dooley would live with that. If they have to depend on Buckland to be able to go at his guys and make individual plays, Coach Dooley will live with that. He won't live with the fact that they were getting beat in transition early, getting wide open looks from 3. But now his team has settled down defensively and found a way to get back into this game. With 5:45 remaining, that's a long time to be able to play with an 8-point lead.
Lipscomb led 60-31 at halftime, and you wondered how much fight Florida Gulf Coast would have left when that lead swelled to 32 for Lipscomb early in the second half. Credit Joe Dooley's team. They took an advantage of a momentum swing when Casey Alexander picked up the technical and haven't looked back.
They really haven't, and when you think about the fact that they've been able to pick up so much on their full court pressure and just take away opportunities from Lipscomb on their offensive end of the floor. Lipscomb, believe it or not, they've scored 31 points here in the second half. But you look at what Florida Gulf Coast has been able to do offensively has been a difference maker compared to where they were early in the game.
Appeared to be a clock issue. Zach Johnson, 9 threes. He's got 37. Matthews kicks it to Korn. He'll fire. Matthews chases down the rebound.
I hope we get an opportunity to see that replay of the last Zach Johnson bucket because I have a question to ask.
Marbury's basket makes it an 8-point lead. Johnson over to Goodwin. Those two have combined for 67 for the Eagles.
And they had 18 combined, I believe, in the first half. But when you watch Zach Johnson, and Nice, you answer me this question. How does a guy that's already made 8 3-pointers get that wide open? How is it that no one from Lipscomb recognizes? Pepper actually points to someone else to pick him up. Does he not recognize that this guy is flat out on fire here in the second half? You want to get to the NCAA tournament the first time in your program's history? You go up there and take away that look.
Meanwhile, Marbury dominating the post right now for Lipscomb. And without Kenny Cooper on the floor, that's been the plan. Go inside to Marbury.
And Marbury has been getting necessary buckets for his team. You're talking about another first-team All-ASUN player, and he has stepped up big time here to help stem the tide of this Florida Gulf Coast comeback, and that's going to be the 4th foul on Zach Johnson, who, of course, has had a spectacular second half. And the officials, of course, on the game managers about the music again. This is the second time they've been warned about playing music during live action. So therefore, there will be no more music here in the arena tonight, or it will be a technical foul.
Goodwin open for three. Offensive rebound, Simmons. Put back is there. 95-87. We come up on 4 minutes to play. Do you worry about tired legs with Florida Gulf Coast? They've been pressing for the better part of this half.
They've had to expend a lot of energy to be able to get back into this game and give Lipscomb credit. Well, I can't give them credit anymore. I tried to give them credit.
Out of bounds, officials say Lipscomb basketball. Can't review that right now. 4 minutes left. Can Dunk City complete the comeback?
Exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Principal. Investments, retirement, insurance.
We showed you and we told you that the largest comeback in a Division I game was 34 points. The largest second half comeback is 31. If Florida Gulf Coast wins this game, they trailed by 32 in the second half. It would be the biggest second half comeback in Division I history.
Anish, Lipscomb is shooting 10 for 16 in the second half. They're still shooting the ball well, but they only have 16 field goal attempts. Zach Johnson has 29 second half points. Lipscomb has 35. Just like Garrison Matthews almost outscored Florida Gulf Coast in the first half, Zach Johnson has almost outscored Lipscomb here in the second half by himself.
Shot clock is at 6. Rose. Rebound to Carlisle.
And at this point, I don't understand why Kenny Cooper is not back on the floor.
Johnson, front rim. Rebound Buckland. Johnson has to be careful. He's got the 4 fouls.
As we were going to break, I was giving Lipscomb credit for really calming down the turnovers over the last 4 minutes that have plagued them so much here in this half.
Matthews fouled on a 3-point shot, and that is going to be 5 on Zach Johnson. He has fouled out with 37 points.
The third time that Garrison Matthews has been fouled on a 3 and coming off a screen. Watch the legs. As his legs go forward, from that angle, it doesn't look like a lot of contact on that shot.
But a nice hand for Johnson.
And he deserves it. You're talking about a young man that has had a heroic effort now. And you have to think about, I mean, again, give Lipscomb some credit. They have calmed this crowd a bit. As we get another look at that 3-point attempt by Garrison Matthews coming off from that angle, and it's hard to tell. It doesn't look as though Zach Johnson touched him. His body motion never changed as if he were hit on that 3. And that's a big play both ways, because you take out a guy who is fiery hot for Zach Johnson.
And Kenny Cooper to the scorers table, getting ready to check in for Lipscomb. Can't check in off the miss. Here's Terrell. Mercurius gets the loose ball over to Goodwin.
And this is about the time that the ASUN Player of the Year, Brandon Goodwin, is going to have to take it over.
32 for Goodwin. We get a 30-second timeout by Joe Dooley. 96-89, 3:09 to go. Lipscomb led by 29 at the half, 32 early in the second half. And Florida Gulf Coast has gotten to within 5 here in the second half. Sports Center after 76ers Bucks with Kenny Mayne and John Anderson. Full breakdown of that game in the NBA, plus the latest from the NFL Combine. Our experts discuss how high UCF's Shaquem Griffin can go. Griffin missing one hand, but one of the best defensive players in the AAC. And I'll tell you what, if Florida Gulf Coast wins this game, that's an A-block story on SportsCenter.
Absolutely. And when you look at it now, Kenny Cooper back in the game. He's got to be smart defensively, but his ball handling ability will be extremely important as this game goes on.
Goodwin the steal. Spinning, lost control. Marbury's got the loose ball and will get a foul. It is on Goodwin, that's 3. Both teams in the double bonus, so 2 shots the rest of the way. Tell you what, Rob Marbury didn't score much in the first half. How many times have we seen him tonight wrestling for the loose ball, working hard inside, especially in the second half for tough points in the paint?
Yeah, he's had intermittent baskets in between those runs for Florida Gulf Coast that has allowed them to be able to maintain a lead, especially when they were struggling to score, when they were able to get into the half court. Marbury's been the guy that has helped them out. But you look at the 2 stars, Marbury and Matthews, a combined 3 missed free throws in their last 2 possessions down the floor. And we talked about it earlier, the recipe for disaster when you are trying to hold off a comeback from opposing team is make free throws. 10 missed free throws right now from Lipscomb.
Zach Johnson can only watch from the bench. He's fouled out with 37 points, a game high. Goodwin, the A-Sun Player of the Year. He's got 32 tonight.
And now we see Lipscomb go to the 2-3 zone as Coach Alexander is trying to protect.
And we get a foul as Terrell attempted the putback. And that is on Marbury. 4 on Rob Marbury.
And so the zone is actually trying to protect Kenny Cooper. But Marbury now picks up his 4th foul, as Gilmore is able to get through the trap. And remember, Marbury's fouls, one of those was from a technical foul. So now he finds himself in foul trouble.
Pepper comes out, Rose checks in. Christian Terrell, a senior from Jacksonville, a high school teammate of Grayson Allen's.
And the pressure from Florida Gulf Coast can still be effective, but with Kenny Cooper on the floor, it shouldn't be as effective, especially when you remove Zach Johnson, who's one of the best defenders in the A-Sun.
That ball, the referees say, deflected out by Florida Gulf Coast.
Got to check the timing on this one because the ball was touched through contact, which means the clock was supposed to have started, but the shot clock still sits at 30. So the officials will go over and get the right timing for this, but it does give Joe Dooley and Casey Alexander both a free timeout. So we get a chance to look as the ball is hit and continues to bounce inbounds. Not sure how much went off the clock on that one. I believe they may have to actually get out the old handheld stopwatch to do that one live action.
With Corey Alexander and Ish Shroff, and partner, if I had told you at halftime that with 2:44 to go in regulation, this game would be hanging in the balance, what would you have said?
I would have told you that, and I believe I did say this, after the week that we've seen in college basketball, nothing surprises me anymore. As we look at this in real speed to see how long. So as we see now, the ball does bounce inbounds. So there will be more. The clock actually did start, but the shot clock never went. But when it was immediately touched is when the clock starts. And then with the bouncing inbounds, it will take at least a couple seconds off of the clock and the shot clock on this possession. But again, after what I saw with Virginia Louisville, nothing is beyond the realm of possibility. We saw a 34-point comeback this year earlier. And again, we've already, and I believe only the second ticket punch into the NCAA tournament thus far. We saw Radford win on a buzzer beater earlier today. So again, I honestly believe that this is a sign of the times. This is what's coming in March. We are going to have a crazy, crazy March this year.
So they've taken a couple of seconds off the clock, and we are in March. We have witnessed madness on a Sunday afternoon in Fort Myers at Alico Arena. A 32-point second-half lead by Lipscomb is down to 6 with 2:43.
So here's the benefit of that play. It actually gets the ball across half court for Lipscomb. So
which has been the challenge in the second half.
That has been a huge challenge, but now you have to deal with this half-court pressure, trying to get the basketball inbounds, and Florida Gulf Coast has been all over the place. But you have to have the reminder, Zach Johnson, second in steals in the A-Sun, is no longer on the court, disqualified after scoring 29 points in the second half, 37 total to get his team back in the game.
Florida Gulf Coast, with a comeback, would get to the big dance for the 4th time in 6 years and 3rd straight year. Lipscomb has never been to the NCAA tournament, looking to hold on as we come up on 2.5 to play. Less than 10 to shoot, Matthews. Now Buckland, shot clock down to 3. Buckland off balance, banks it in! Goodwin down the lane, the floater gets the roll, 99-93. Cooper in the backcourt, and we get a blocking foul. And that'll send Kenny Cooper to the free throw line for 2.
Now, Nish, we saw Kenny Cooper go to the free throw line early. The first one barely drew iron. Cooper is his first year as a starter for Lipscomb. This is the biggest moment he's been in, and he's played a great game. We've talked about him a lot with his ability to handle the basketball, get his team out into transition and make plays. But there's a lot of pressure on these free throws, and the first one comes up extremely short. He hasn't been in this situation before. That's one of the things that Coach Alexander talked to us about with this team. They haven't been here. Florida Gulf Coast has.
1 out of 2 for Cooper. Joe Dooley told me yesterday, playing in this game the last 2 years, it was supposed to shake off early cobwebs. It was supposed to harden his team in the face of adversity. Early cobwebs were there.
That was a big-time block there by Buckland.
And now a foul on Carlisle, so Cooper back to the free throw line.
Buckland doing the job defensively as he goes through the whole bench, dapping up his team. He knows he made a huge play there. Getting back in front of the A-Sun Player of the Year, Brandon Goodwin, and coming up with a huge block.
Free throw no good for Cooper. "12 missed free throws by Lipscomb. 11 of them have come in the second half. Goodwin to Mercurius. He's a shooter. 3 doesn't go. It hit Pepper in the face. Carlisle on the putback attempt will draw the foul. If that's Marbury, that is 5. Pepper puts his hand up. And the foul is on Rob Marbury. So despite Eli Pepper's best cell job, Marbury has fouled out.
And now we've seen 2 of our 4 stars to watch foul out of this game, as the fight for the offensive rebound puts Marbury in a tough spot.
And Corey, you mentioned a big spot for Kenny Cooper. This is a big spot for Christian Carlisle. He missed 6 games with an ankle injury, came back in the semis, just his 2nd game back.
But he showed no effects of pressure on that free throw, calmly knocking it down. And this is an even bigger one because if he's able to knock down his free throw, not only does it put points on the board, but it allows Florida Gulf Coast to set up that pressure defense 94 feet once again.
1 out of 2, Carlisle gets his own miss.
Or that's even better.
Terrell threads one inside to Gilmore. We get a foul. Going the other way, it's on Gilmore, who can't believe it.
Well, I thought that would be a better scenario, coming up with the offensive rebound, off the missed free throw, giving your team a chance to score. And the foul must have had to have been called with the right arm of Gilmore going out and making contact with Aaron Korn in the face, because when the ball went to the ground, there is no foul. And I believe the officials are going over, checking to make sure that's not a flagrant. And I would be shocked to see that. That's a basketball play. Gilmore's just trying to hold off. He's trying to hold off position. There is incidental contact, which if you're going to call the foul, I get it. But that was nothing intentional about that. That's a basketball play.
That's 2 guys going for the ball. Now right there, you see that right arm. Officials looking to see if that is a flagrant one. Now watch right here. I think if you pick it up a little earlier.
Yeah, you see there is contact, but it's not excessive. It is a basketball play. It's Gilmore trying to get position. It's against a shorter player, so his elbow is above Korn's neck area, but he's not even looking in his direction to try to make that a play. And again, this is the new basketball. 5 years ago, this isn't even a foul. That is Korn basically coming in while Gilmore is trying to establish post position to be able to catch the basketball.
Now they're talking with Joe Dooley. I would imagine this stands as a common foul.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I don't go against the officials at all on this one if they call it a common foul, because that's the way the game is to be officiated at this point. But I'm glad they came away with that being nothing more than that.
And that is what it is. It's a common foul. It's 4 on Gilmore. And Cooper will inbound under his own basket. A 3-possession game, 1:27 to go. Cooper over to Rose.
And that's a dangerous area.
And Rose is fouled.
The one place you do not, well, there are actually 4 spots on both sides of the half-court line up against the sideline. If you get a trap, it's almost like having 4 defenders. You do not want to catch the ball in what is considered dead man's corner right there. Rose very fortunate to be able to get fouled and get out of that, a bailout from Florida Gulf Coast.
Free throw good by Rose. The foul on Goodwin, his 4th. And a lot of the new rules, it's hurt teams that trap a lot. And all of a sudden, where you might be rewarded for that and could get away with some physical play, not the case anymore.
It really isn't. And when you think about it, it's such a staple of so many teams in college basketball, but it has been taken away from the game because of the rules regarding invading the cylinder.
Cooper is fouled, and Lipscomb can see the finish line. Up 8, 1:09 to go. The Bisons on the verge of their first trip to the NCAA tournament. Carlisle just picked up his 5th, so he's done. And you can tell for Florida Gulf Coast, when Zach Johnson picked up that 5th foul, the momentum was muted.
Well, you're talking about a first-team ASUN player. You're talking about second in the ASUN in steals. A great defender, but his big shot ability in the second half is really what gave the Eagles confidence. And they really have stalled offensively, even when they got their opportunities, unable to knock them down with Zach Johnson on the bench. That was a huge call. And again, when you looked at it live action as well as the replay, there wasn't much contact on that three-pointer from Garrison Matthews with that foul Zach Johnson out of the game. I'm sure it's something that Coach Dooley will be talking to a few of his officiating friends about once this game is over.
10-point game, 109 to go. Goodwin picks up his dribble.
And the body language right now for Florida Gulf Coast is not good. It's almost as though their belief is gone.
Mercurius misses the three. Cooper back to the free throw line. He's lived there since he came back into the game.
You know, and Casey Alexander took a huge risk by keeping Cooper on the bench for as long as he did. He did get him in for one spot, but took him back out for another 4 minutes. Did not bring him in until our last media timeout under 4. But it paid off for him. His team actually was able to calm down and not turn the basketball over, get to the free throw line at times in order to stem the tide. But Zach Johnson fouling out of this game probably was the biggest play for both teams, which has allowed Lipscomb to be able to hang on and most likely be able to punch their ticket for the first time into the NCAA tournament.
If you're just joining us, Lipscomb led by 32 early in the second half. Florida Gulf Coast got it to within 5. Goodwin's three, back iron. Scott the rebound, back to Goodwin. Chucks it up, almost went in, had some English on it. And then Goodwin fouls Cooper. Goodwin has fouled out. Cooper to the line. The A-Sun Player of the Year is finished with 34 points. His Florida Gulf Coast career has been exemplary. He was the A-Sun Newcomer of the Year last year, began his career at UCF. Tournament MVP in the A-Sun a season ago, and now fouled out with 34 points. And some fans making their way toward the exits.
This young man has had a great career in his time here at Florida Gulf Coast and will continue to play basketball moving forward. Who knows at what level, but he's a big-time player.
Johnson and Goodwin both huge in the second half, and now Darnell Rogers into the game, the 5'2" freshman, the smallest scholarship player in all of Division I.
And it needs one thing for certain.
Terrell to the free throw line.
Playing in this format that the A-Sun plays in, where the highest seed gets to play the game on their home court. The last time a #1 seed beat a #2 seed, I believe, was when Belmont did it, when Casey Alexander was an assistant coach 12 years ago.
Against Lipscomb.
Against Lipscomb. That was the last time that a A-Sun team was able to win 3 straight consecutive tournament titles, as well as a #1 seed beat a #2 seed on their home court.
And Corey, this Lipscomb team, their entire starting 5 will be back next year.
Which will probably make them the #1 seed, meaning they won't win the championship. Is that what you're saying?
Saying there's a good chance they might be playing this game in Nashville next year.
Well, give Lipscomb a lot of credit. A tremendous first half. They survived the second half storm from Florida Gulf Coast, but did just enough to stem the tide. They made enough plays to find themselves punching their ticket for the first time into the big dance.
Highest scoring A-Sun championship game of all time. Buckland the block. Matthews will dribble out the clock. Lipscomb has its first date with the dance. Lipscomb, the A-Sun Conference champions, heading to the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. A banner moment for this program. Lipscomb, 108, Florida Gulf Coast, 96. Seattle and LAFC, MLS, coming your way next.